Hey guys, it's Avondale, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Walls, where I take you behind the walls of the Noxcrew Gameshow games. I'd like to remind you, as always, if you haven't seen today's episode, make sure to check the top right-hand corner of your screen. I've included a link up there, if I remember to do it, so you can watch the episode before we spoil it for you. So as you can see here, I'm in a wintry wonderland, and my guest for today is Emos again.
Yay. Yay.
Oh, you made it! Oh, it crashed.
Hi.
The pig was like mesmerized, dude. He like looked up and then, I don't know. He's just barely stuck his head through the fence there. It's really beautiful. He's like, hey, what you doing? So anyways, I have Emos here with me today to talk about Yeti Set Go, which was today's game show game, and I brought him along again because you guessed it, he did a large majority of the building on this project. And so I think first of all, we'll just kind of take a flyover of the course and talk about different parts of the build, and then we'll talk about what actually happened during the episode. So I guess I'll let you just take it away. You know, what was going through your head when I said, hey, I want a Python's Crypt type game, but in like the snow mountains?
At first I was thinking like we should make it all happen inside of a mountain, like we did with Python scripts, where it's inside of a pyramid or whatever. But then I thought it would be much more interesting if it was an open. Then you came up with the idea if we made like a skiing village or whatever.
Yeah, because initially the idea for this game, like I wanted to do it as a race, but I wanted to actually make it a biathlon, so you had to race, and when you got to a section, you would have to shoot some targets, and if you missed a target or two, you would have to do like a penalty lap and then keep going. It was just going to be like cross-country skiing with the shooting targets that they do in the biathlons. We were running into an issue with that, though, where it was one of those things that, you get 6 people all doing things that are very important at the same time, and 4 cameras to record it. And so eventually that idea got shot down and then kind of reinvigorated into a different game that we won't talk about yet. But yeah, this is sort of what came out of it. So we're here in the middle of the cross-country ski village right now, and if you look over here, this is a little practice course that the contestants got to run around on at the beginning of the game to learn about the different pads. There was the jump pad there, and then the speed boost up here. And I guess it's a good time to bring up that the game was not designed with the effects in mind. I said, Spuddy, build me a course, and I came and looked at it, and I was like, oh, it's beautiful, but it's way too big, and climbing the backside of the mountain sucks. And actually, let's go over and take a look at that mountain right now. The mountain was one of the more sort of iconic areas I wanted him to have during the game. I said, we need to make this really big mountain, and I want there to be one part where you have to basically jump down the mountain without dying. Which was actually, that spawned from a different game idea I had before. It was going to be called Avalanche, and we were going to build basically a mountain all the way up to the skybox, and it was going to be a race to see who could get down to the bottom without dying the fastest. So there'd be like checkpoints at certain areas, and you'd take a lot of fall damage, but this was sort of just a mini iteration of that. And so he built this beautiful mountain with the path coming down, and I mean, that part just looked so cool, and it would look great to see the contestants whizzing by there. It's funny that I said whizzing, and we have the yellow snow over there. That was completely unintentional, actually. But the sort of the negative result of that was the back part of this mountain was just terrible to race, because you had to do this jumpy thing where you just bounce up block by block, and really wasn't any fun. And we actually,
too steep.
Yeah, we would have had to do it way shallower. And I mean, but racing in Minecraft is not really fun. Like, that's probably the worst part about Minecraft, is when you're like, I need to climb up this hill block by block, and you just sit there and you jump and you jump, you jump, and what else can you do? But we actually almost vetoed this game as a result of this, and then I said, well, what if we did jump pads? I don't know if they're going to work that great, but we'll try it. And once we tried it, I mean, they were scaled to the perfect height. You know, like you watch them do these jumps, they don't fling any further than they need to. It was still relatively challenging, but it was really consistent, and it really did turn out great.
Yeah, then also there's a MLG jump you can do here.
Oh yeah,
you go down the
can
mountain.
We pull it off?
I don't know. I pull it out like 1 out of 100 times.
Yeah, I've done it about 3 times total.
Yeah, no way. You need to like clip just the edge of the cobweb when you jump from there. So
the idea is that you you can get the 4-block jump more or less if you time it right from back here, and so you would probably have to jump from right about there. Yeah, so you'd go like jump, and then you have to. Oh, I missed it. Yeah, hang on. I think if you do the 4-block jump, it's gonna be too much. So you run out to the end of this, you jump, and then you just missed it. If you hit this cobweb right here, right in the right spot, it slows you down just enough so you don't take damage, and you can keep smoking your way through the course. And it actually gives you like a 2 or 3 second advantage over people that take this the safe way. Oh, I might have done it that time. It's kind of hard to tell when you're in creative mode, but that looked really close. Anyways, we get a little bit ahead of ourselves, but let's backtrack over here, and we'll sort of go over the different parts of the course. So we had the opening straightaway, and kind of the idea behind that was just to teach people how the speed boosts work. There were a few snowmen on the course, which were, of course, just zombies dressed up in armor. Then we get to the river crossing, which was very unfortunate. We'll talk about what happened to the contestants later on the episode, but yeah, you get onto to this part right here, and this area of the course was actually the first more or less technical part of the course. We had to do not only some decision making, but some zigging and zagging. And while we're here, I actually want to mention a bit of trivia that has to go with this episode. If you go back to the first lap, the very first time the contestants get to this part of the course, there was some sort of a ice spike sticking up right here, and when it gets back for lap 2, that is gone. Basically what happened was the way that I did these checkpoints was I thought of a smarter way to do this about a week after we played this game, and I was really sad that I didn't do it earlier. But basically there's colored wool that labels each checkpoint, and I made it 3 blocks deep. And what I would do is, like, the problem I was encountering was I needed to check on the players for a block relative to them, but the course has its checkpoints at multiple heights. So I was just burying 3 blocks of it below it, and I was checking 3 blocks below them, or 2 blocks or something below them, so pretty much there would always be one of those wool blocks below them, even if they were jumping. However, Zathan came through here on the first lap, and this thing was like up to wherever it was, and when he came through, he jumped over the checkpoint, and it didn't credit him. And I actually, in the tab list when this game was playing, I had a backup objective to let me know if the players hit checkpoints. And I was worried about this one not working because it was the one that, like, we never had it break in practice, but I just had that nagging suspicion in the back of my mind, you know? And I hit tab, and I was just sitting, like, right here watching him, and sure enough, he goes over the checkpoint. It didn't affect him, and then he goes down and he falls down the pit and died, and that was going to make him spawn back there. So he did spawn back in, but pretty much immediately when he spawned, I had already typed the TP command, and I had him right here. I watched him run off on his way, and then right after that, I broke the ice spike so nobody else could jump it, and that was the end of it.
Clutch.
Yeah, it was... I don't know, little things like that can happen all the time in game show. It's just, you know, whether you're prepared for them or not that makes the difference. But the better way that I thought of to do this, which I don't know why I didn't think of it at the time, was basically I'd put a command block here, right? So I do, set block, tilde 1, tilde, and then wool 2, so whatever the block is that I'm using there. And then basically I can take this command block and just control click it and put it everywhere on here, right? And then by triggering them all at once, I will get a checkpoint of exactly this shape way down underneath the world at y=1. So then I can just test for a block relative to them at y=1 instead of relative to them a certain depth below them. And there's no way the checkpoint would ever break. So sad that I didn't think of it then, but that'll be included in every racing game we do from now on.
Yay.
Alright, let's talk about the cave. So, Emos told me he was going underground through the mountain with it, and I was like, alright. And that was the entire influence that I had on this area of the map. I come back about 2 days later, and there is, submarines and just random scenery that you might not have seen in the episode. But yeah, just talk to me a little bit about the design process behind this cave, because there's a lot of stuff going on, but it looks really cool.
Here's the thing. I didn't build the cave.
You cut the cave, though, didn't you?
Oh, I cut the cave. Just took an airbrush and run through the cave and just made some little pockets down in the
yeah.
On the ground.
How did you do the clay in the walls? Like, was that you?
No. I think this was like Thonax and Skyo and Jamster. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I assumed the scenery was Skyo because there's the Zoidberg face in it. Frozen in the ice, of course. And then up here, what do we have? We have like a skeleton of a gigantic fish of some sort.
Piranha.
There's
the mammoth is amazing.
The woolly mammoth looks really, really nice. Then over here,
the Noximus Prime.
Yeah. And this was a callback to a build that was actually right next to Bobby Groove's mansion in the introduction party that we did with the contestants at the beginning. We decided we were going to freeze it in the ice here. Actually, an interesting thing to talk about while we're in here, I just looked up and found one of the spots. It's like how, whenever we go underground like this in Game Show, we have to light it. And we're sitting in here, I don't have night vision on. And it's really quite bright in here. And I thought it'd be neat to just sort of talk about how we achieved that. So we cut... Let's see, there was like 3 different ways that we did it, right? We cut the holes in the ceiling here. So if we fly straight up through here... Yeah, you'll see if we're like up above the mountain, there's a couple different places where you can see all the way straight down through. Here's one as well.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know how you say it, natural sunlight in Minecraft is much better than pretty much any lighting block you can get.
Yeah, for sure, it's a lot brighter. And we covered up the bottoms of some of this with ice as well. But we also added in some lights in spots where we couldn't dig holes that looked right. I believe under here, yeah, we hid the sea lanterns underneath some packed ice, and that touched up quite a bit of the spots in here as well. What else? This is a nice way to hide lighting and scenery, is just stick lamps right behind things, and then the light sort of comes out from the back of it. Gives it a nice look. It's definitely a challenge to light games for Game Show, especially when they go underground, but I think we really pulled it off quite well with this one.
Yeah, I really liked the cave, how they made it. I was jaded of doing it. I think this was Joda who did the clay and stuff. Maybe. Yeah, I really like the atmosphere in here.
Yeah, it felt nice. Alright, and then we get to the mountain. We've already talked about that, so we'll skip it. We'll go down over here by the yellow snow, which was one of the last additions made to the map. Then we get kind of into this area, and this area was, in my opinion, the most difficult area of the course to make interesting. Because the first area had the village, and then you had the first river crossing, and then the cave was fantastic. The mountain was really cool, and then we get to this area, and the first couple goes over of it, it was just flat. The way that we tried to dress it up a little bit was by making it feel like you were running through the forest, by giving you the shortcut there off the mountain. and then just trying to make it a little bit more technical in the terms of how can you get the speed out of your run, right? Like if you look at this area right here, the contestant's eye is drawn to this spot over here because it's wider and that's where you want to run. But actually, when you take this area right here, if you pick this lane right here where you're going straight through, you can pick up potentially 2 seconds just on that corner alone. And it's not necessarily so important when you're the front runner to do stuff like that, but if you get if it's one of those things where you're trying to catch up, you're a lap into it and you need to move up a place to get your team to win the game, that's the type of thing that would greatly benefit you. Talk a little bit about where you get these houses from.
These originally were built in like a different texture pack in Conquest, and they look much better in it.
It doesn't everything, right?
Yeah. It is a bit cheaty, but it's supposed to be a little German village, and originally there was no snow, like any snow, it was like spring or whatever. There was like a big wheat field. And the houses they're pretty basic actually. You look at them, it's just using the same modular things and then shape, beautiful interior.
I remember I wanted them to make an interior in here. I don't think it ever got done. No, it's dead empty.
They're all empty.
Yeah, because this house right here was where the commentators and the butcher and Noxite all came out of when you got to this game. And I wanted there to be an interior in case the contestants came up and tried to look in and see where they came from, but alas, there was nothing. And then one other thing, actually, I wanted to mention before we start talking about the game. You may have noticed these tree stands around the place here. We built 3 of these, and the purpose of these tree stands was, and you see here, there's barrier blocks, so I can't get up in. But basically, before the game, we warped the contestants around to these different trees. So I had like a command block right here that teleported all the players back to the start, but we would move them from tree stand to tree stand so we could talk about different parts of the game. So in one tree stand, they saw the entrance to the cave, and the next one they saw the jump pads over there, and then in this third one they saw this river jump here, and also the fact that there were multiple paths that they could choose. So they didn't actually get to try the course beforehand, but they were familiar with all the different mechanics that we needed them to learn. The speed boost, the jump boost, and the fact that there were more than one pad. And that brings us back to the start of the course, which gives us a good chance to start talking about the events of the episode. Huh? So we had the final game between Team Shed and Team Evac Crew. And it's tied 1-1. It's loser goes home, winner goes through to the finals of the Noxcrew Gameshow. And the game started out really interestingly because everybody was just kind of feeling the course out, right? You had everybody in a big clump here, and they get through to this first water jump, and pretty much everybody falls in the water. And they're just kind of in here, and everybody's kind of together, but Zafin struggles coming out of this, and all of a sudden there's a pretty immediate split in the pack, right? You've got Craftman and Lemon, who are more or less trading first, back and forth. You've got the next 3 of them, T-Rex, Soviet, and Conflict Nerd, all chilling in the middle. And then Zafin's just kind of looking at him from behind. And it kind of, it was interesting because those groups more or less stayed like that for the entire game, It was like that immediate separation. There was really nothing super clutch that happened out of anyone to like make a big run back for first. There was a lot of trading places in the middle, and definitely Evac Crew ended up clutching it out, but nobody came from behind and really put up a huge threat.
Yeah, but they had a chance when there was a point in match where all 3 people from the yellow team died somewhere around here,
Soviet hero. Oh God!
Yeah,
Tries to take the booster, but hits the ground.
Yes! Come on,
Yellow team dying to fall damage in about 3 seconds. That's crazy.
There was an opportunity that unfortunately wasn't seized by Shed. I wanted to talk about a couple of moments in that episode, though. The first one that I really wanted to talk about is when Mr. Craftman realized that he was going to lap his teammate.
Oh man.
Hold control to sprint.
Oh, fuck.
I'm not too far off.
Zafin falls out of the world again.
Yeah, I'm right at you.
Mr. Craftman is following up behind him.
Have you just been dying here?
Ooh, Zafin getting lapped. Ooh, by his own teammate. That's gotta sting.
I think Zafin's just given up on life.
It was a very sad situation because he finally realized how dire their situation was, but he comes up around this corner and he sees Zafin right there, and Craftman comes down and goes like this and is already 20 blocks in front of Zafin despite having just come around the corner. And you just you watch that moment, and that really described the entirety of the game. It was Craftman really just showing off some excellent skills and some excellent knowledge of the course despite having done only, a lap and a half at that point. And then you've got Zafin just kind of struggling, trying his best, but I'd imagine there was a lot of nerves that went into that moment.
I think it was an issue with his sprint. You can see in a lot of places he's not even sprinting or sprint jumping, or I don't know.
Yeah. It sort of makes you wonder how many contestants still double tap for sprint versus how many of them actually hold down control like Mr. Craftman was doing.
It's so much faster. You have room to fail if you hold control.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I don't know if any of the contestants picked up on it, but in that test course you can actually learn that sprint jumping is faster, but when you have the speed boost, sprint jumping is slower. There's enough room in that test course to be able to figure that out. And that's one of those things that we don't want to give the contestants before we start because, I don't know, we feel like strategies like that are more like elite strategies, and if a team can come up with that strategy, then they deserve to win the game. Which is generally the reason we try not to give away things like that too much.
I mean, that still comes down to knowledge of Minecraft.
Yeah.
You can't really figure it out. Maybe you can. I don't know. I don't think you could.
Yeah, that's a fair point to mention, is that a lot of these game show games really do come down to how well you know the game. And this was one of those moments where it really did. The other moment, I mentioned I wanted to talk about two moments. What I didn't say was that they were both between Craftman and Zafin, because the second moment I wanted to talk about was when Craftman had finished the race, and he's standing at the finish line with the camera over his shoulder and just slowly watching Zafin run by and complete his second lap.
That was so sad.
It was really sad because you could really tell how much they cared and wanted to be in the finals, and it was such a depressing moment of the show for sure. Because it was at that point, I think, that Mr. Craftman finally gave up hope. Conflict Nerd was getting pretty down on them pretty early. It might have been realistic, but at the same time, they definitely needed somebody to pump them up, and Craftman was trying as hard as he could, but in the end, if Craftman's gonna win the game, he needs one of his teammates to give him a hand, and he didn't get that hand in this game. I think the last thing we'll talk about in the gameplay is that was the most excited I have ever heard Evac Crew be since they've been on the show.
And that does it, Evac Crew!
Do it!
That's it. That seals it.
Okay, let's tally it up.
Yeah!
GG, guys. GG. GG, man.
Yes! Oh my god. Guys, we're in the final. What the hell?
If you compare it to after Blocksketball, they were pretty happy with the game. They really enjoyed it, but they weren't necessarily elated as they were when they were running down here. I mean, they were literally cheering for their final member to cross the finish line down this entire home stretch. They're just like, yeah, come on, go, yes! And then they were trying to do the math, and we obviously already know how the points add up, so we just hit the yellow team wins button right at the end, and just that reaction was... It was the first time we really felt like they were enjoying winning. Because, I mean, you remember the first interview they had, kind of underwhelming, and we were wondering how much they were sort of putting themselves into the show, and that was the moment where we saw that, yeah, they were really in it to win it. And it's going to be interesting to see them head into the finals versus Ungentlemen. Okay, so final thoughts on Yeti Set Go, Emos.
Too big. I thought I learned, but then I made something bigger that you'll see soon.
Yeah, you have
not a good thing.
You have landlord syndrome.
Oh yeah, and also, whenever you play a competitive game, don't be a conflict nerd, where you right at the beginning you say we're gonna lose. It's the worst thing you can do to your team.
So thanks again to Emos for joining me to talk about Yeti Set Go.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, and thank you to the audience for tuning in to hang out with us. So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
So thanks again to Emos for joining me to talk about Yeti Set Go.
Shmoo!
Okay. Dude, my brain just froze. Okay.
Have to basically jump down the mountain without dying, which was actually, that spawned from a different game idea I had before. It was going to be called Avalanche, and we were going to build basically a mountain all the way up to the skybox, and it was going to be a race to see who could get down to the bottom without dying the fastest. So there'd be like checkpoints at certain areas, and you'd take a lot of fall damage, but this was sort of just a mini iteration of that. And so we built this beautiful mountain with the path coming down, and I mean, that part just looked so cool, and it would look great to see the contestants whizzing by there. It's funny that I said whizzing, and we have the yellow snow over there. That was completely unintentional, actually. But the sort of the negative result of that was the back part of this mountain was just terrible to race, because you had to do this jumpy thing where the cross-country ski village right now, and if you look over here, this is a little practice course that the contestants got to run around on at the beginning of the game to learn about the different pads. So it was the jump pad there, and then the speed boost up here. And I guess it's a good time to bring up that the game was not designed with the effects in mind. I said, you know, Spuddy, build me a course, and I came and looked at it, and I was like, oh, you know, it's beautiful, but it's way too big, and climbing the backside of the mountain sucks. And actually, let's go over and take a look at that mountain right now. The mountain was one of the more sort of iconic areas I wanted him to have during the game. I said, we need to make this really big mountain, and I want there to be one part where you have... So anyways, I have Emos here with me today to talk about Yeti Set Go, which was today's game show game, and I brought him along again because, you guessed it, he did a large majority of the building on this project. And so I think first of all, we'll just kind of take a flyover of the course and talk about different parts of the build, and then we'll talk about what actually happened during the episode. So I guess I'll let you just take it away. You know, what was going through your head when I said, hey, I want a Python's Crypt type game, but in like the snow mountains?
At first I was thinking like we should make it all happen inside of a mountain, like we did with Python scripts, where it's inside of a pyramid or whatever. But then I thought it would be much more interesting if it was an open. Then you came up with the idea of...
Hey guys, it's Avondale, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Walls, where I take you behind the walls of the Noxcrew Gameshow games. I'd like to remind you, as always, if you haven't seen today's episode, make sure to check the top right-hand corner of your screen. I've included a link up there if I remember to do it, so you can watch the episode before we spoil it for you. So as you can see here, I'm in a wintry wonderland, and my guest for today is Emos again.
Yay. Yay.
Oh, you made it! Oh, it
But-
crashed.
Hi.
The pig was like mesmerized, dude. He like looked up and then, I don't know. He's just like, he's just barely stuck his head through the fence there. It's really beautiful. He's like, hey, what you doing?
Nice. If we made like a skiing village or whatever.
Yeah, because
So-
initially the idea for this game, like I wanted to do it as a race, but I wanted to actually make it a biathlon. So you had to race, and when you got to a section, you would have to shoot some targets. And if you missed a target or two, you would have to do like a penalty lap and then keep going. It was just going to be like cross-country skiing with the, you know, the shooting targets that they do in the biathlons. We were running into an issue with that though, where it was one of those things that you know, you get 6 people all doing things that are very important at the same time, and 4 cameras to record it. And so eventually that idea got shot down and then kind of reinvigorated into a different game that we won't talk about yet. But yeah, this is sort of what came out of it. So we're here in the middle of